Welcome to your deep dive on speaking English more fluently.
More fluently,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
today we're exploring a podcast called English Fluency Hub. Um, sometimes you know exactly what you want to say, but
Right.
it just comes out clunky, like
Yeah.
you're reading from a textbook.
Yeah.
English Fluency Hub is all about sounding natural and confident in everyday conversations.
What I appreciate about their approach is they focus on the phrases that native speakers actually use, not just textbook grammar rules. It's about fitting into the flow of conversation and feeling like you truly belong.
Exactly. They break fluency down into these bite-sized pieces that feel less overwhelming. We're going to look at things like starting conversations, ordering food handling, small talk, even navigating work conversations without sounding stiff.
They really emphasize the why behind the phrases. For example, instead of just saying, I want a coffee,
Right.
you'll learn to say, can I get a latte, please? It seems like a small change, but it reflects a deeper understanding of cultural nuances.
Ooh, that's a great point. It's about politeness and creating a more indirect tone. Okay, so let's dive into starting conversations. We all know hello works, but English Fluency Hub suggests phrases like, how's it going? Or what's new? What's the thinking there?
Well, those phrases do more than just say hello. They invite the other person to share something about themselves. It
Huh.
subtly shifts the conversation from a simple greeting to a potential exchange.
So it's about creating that opening for a back and forth, right? I've noticed sometimes those simple greetings can lead to awkward silences if you're not sure what to say next.
Absolutely. And the podcast emphasizes the importance of follow-up questions to keep those conversations flowing. For instance, if someone responds with, I'm good,
Yeah,
don't just leave it at that. You could ask, what's been keeping you busy, or anything exciting happening this week.
it's like taking a simple hello and turning it into an actual conversation starter.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably where a lot of us, even if we have a good grasp of English, might stumble. We get stuck in those basic exchanges and miss the opportunity to really connect.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond just exchanging words and actually engaging with the other person. Now, something to keep in mind is that while how's it going is great for casual settings,
Yeah.
it might not be appropriate for a formal work environment.
That's a great point about context. I could see how's it going. Might feel too informal if you're talking to your boss or a client. What would be a good alternative in that situation?
You could try something like, how are things going with the project? Or have you had a chance to look over the report? It shows that you engaged and ready to discuss work-related matters.
So even within these seemingly simple greetings, there's a whole layer of nuance depending on the situation. It's not just about learning phrases, it's about understanding when and where to use them.
Precisely. And that awareness is crucial for sounding truly fluent and confident in English. It's about adapting your language to different social contexts. Now moving on to ordering at a cafe or restaurant.
Yes, I know personally I used to feel so self-conscious ordering food. Even if I knew what I wanted, I'd overthink it, worried about my pronunciation or using the wrong words. I'm guessing English Fluency Hub has some tips for this.
They do, and it goes back to that idea of sounding natural. Instead saying, I want a coffee, try, can I get a latte, please? Or I'll have a cappuccino, thanks. Do you hear the difference?
Definitely. Those sound so much smoother, more confident. It's like I automatically transform into someone who frequents cafes and knows exactly what they're doing. Okay, I have to ask, what if I need a minute to decide? Sometimes those menus can be overwhelming.
They've got you covered. You can simply say, give me a second, please.
Okay?
It's polite, it gives you a moment to breathe, and it avoids that panicked feeling of someone waiting for your order.
I love that. It's such a simple phrase, but it makes a world of difference in terms of feeling comfortable and composed. It's like giving yourself permission to take your time and make a choice.
And it shows the cashier that you're considerate of their time as well. Now imagine you've decided on your drink and you want it to go. How would you phrase that?
I'd probably say, can I get that to go? Or maybe, could I take this to go? Is there a preferred way to say it?
Both of those work perfectly.
Okay.
Could I get that to go is a classic and very natural sounding phrase. The key is to be clear and direct, avoiding any potential for confusion.
So even in these seemingly straightforward situations like ordering food, there are little nuances that can make you sound more like a native speaker. It's not just about knowing the vocabulary, it's about using the right phrases in the right way.
And that's where English Fluency Hub really shines. They provide those practical tips that you can apply immediately in real-life conversations. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about small talk.
Oh yeah, small talk. I think a lot of people, especially those learning English, find it a bit daunting. It can feel forced or awkward if you're not sure what to say. What does English Fluency Hub recommend for navigating the world of small talk?
They highlight the importance of finding common ground, even if it's something as simple as the weather. You could start with a phrase like, crazy weather we're having, huh? Or this heat is unbelievable, isn't it?
It's almost like a universal icebreaker.
Yeah,
Everyone has an opinion on the weather, and it's a safe topic to start a conversation without getting too personal right away.
exactly. It's about easing into the conversation and creating a connection. And from there, you can branch out to other topics based on the other person's response.
So you're not necessarily stuck talking about the weather forever. It's more like using it as a springboard to other topics. What are some other tips they suggest for keeping the conversation flowing?
They recommend using phrases like, that reminds me,
Hmm.
or speaking of, to transition smoothly between subjects. For example, if someone mentions a recent vacation, you could say, that reminds me I'm planning a trip to the beach soon.
Oh, cool.
It creates a natural link between what they've said and something you want to share. It's like weaving a tapestry of conversation, using these phrases as threads to connect different ideas and experiences.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It makes small talk seem less like a chore and more like an art form. English Fluency Hub also talks about phrases for expressing agreement or acknowledgement. I feel like that's another area where I'd sometimes stumble wanting to show I'm listening but not sure what to say beyond a simple yes.
They suggest using phrases like, no worries, instead of, it's okay, or you're welcome.
Okay.
It's a bit more informal and friendly, especially among peers or in casual settings.
Oh, I like that no worries feels very approachable and relaxed. Is there a situation where I might not want to use it?
While it's widely used, it might not be the most appropriate choice in a very formal situation like a business meeting with high-ranking executives.
Okay.
In those cases, sticking with "you're welcome" or "my pleasure" might be a safer bet.
It's interesting how even these small phrases can have different levels of formality depending on the context. I'm also thinking about I know, right? I hear that one a lot.
I know, right? Is a fantastic way to express agreement and shared enthusiasm. It shows you're on the same page as the other person and creates a sense of camaraderie. It's especially common among younger generations.
I can definitely see how it adds a bit of energy and personality to a conversation. Okay, let's shift gears again and talk about those tricky work conversations. I think a lot of people, myself included, feel pressure to sound super formal and professional in a work setting, which can sometimes make it sound robotic.
Absolutely. And English Fluency Hub addresses this directly. They encourage finding that balance between professionalism and naturalness.
Right.
It's about sounding competent and respectful without losing your authentic voice.
So how do you strike that balance? What kind of phrases help achieve that sweet spot?
They recommend using phrases like, let's touch base later, instead of the more casual, we'll talk later. It still conveys the same message, but with a touch more formality.
That's a great example. It's subtle, but it makes a difference. I'm also thinking about times when you need to request more information or follow up on something. I sometimes struggle with sounding too demanding or impatient.
English Fluency Hub has some excellent tips for that, too. Instead of simply saying, where's that report?
Right.
Try something like, have you had a chance to finalize the report or to have an update on the report?
Those are much better. They sound polite and professional while still conveying the message that you're waiting on something. It's about checking in without being overbearing.
Exactly. And they emphasize the importance of checking for understanding as well, using phrases like, does that make sense? Or am I explaining this clearly? Can prevent misunderstandings and ensure everyone is on the same page.
That's so important. I know I've been in situations where I assumed everyone understood only to find out later that wasn't the case. It's much better to confirm understanding up front, especially in work situations.
It shows that you're thorough and value clear communication. Now, another tricky aspect of work conversations can be asking for help. Sometimes it feels awkward or like you're admitting weakness.
Oh, I feel that I'd much rather struggle silently than ask for help and seem incompetent. How does English Fluency Hub recommend approaching this?
They suggest using phrases like, would you mind helping me with this? Or could you lend me a hand with this task?
Okay.
It's less direct than just saying help me and shows respect for the other person's time.
It's about making it a request rather than a demand, and I imagine it also helps build a sense of collaboration and teamwork.
Precisely. It positions you and your colleague as partners working together towards a common goal. It's so much more effective than struggling alone in silence. Now, speaking of those work conversations, let's talk about how to end them gracefully.
Yes, I'm a master at letting conversations drag on way longer than they need to. I think I'm just afraid of sounding rude or abrupt when trying to wrap things up.
That's a common concern. English Fluency Hub suggests phrases like, all right, I better get going, or I need to jump on another call.
Okay,
These phrases signal that you're ready to end the conversation without sounding dismissive.
those are good. I like that they provide a reason for ending the conversation, which makes it feel less abrupt. Are there specific phrases they recommend for phone calls or online messages?
They suggest talk soon, which keeps the connection open and friendly.
Oh,
And for both in-person and online conversations, take care is a versatile phrase that expresses warmth and concern.
It's amazing how these seemingly small tweaks in phrasing
Yeah,
can have such a big impact on how confident and natural you sound in English.
right.
It's like having a secret code to unlock fluency.
What I find particularly valuable about English Fluency Hub is their emphasis on practice.
Hmm.
It's not enough to just listen and understand these phrases.
Right.
You have to actively use them
Yeah.
in your daily life.
It's like learning a new dance move. At first, you're focusing on each step, feeling a bit awkward and unsure. But the more you practice, the smoother and more effortless it becomes. Eventually, you're not even thinking about the steps anymore. You're just flowing with the music.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And just like with dancing, don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's part of a learning process.
Right.
Even native speakers stumble over their words sometimes.
So true. And I think it's important to remember that fluency isn't about perfection. It's about effective communication. It's about getting your message across clearly and confidently, even if you make a few grammatical errors along the way.
What's fascinating is that language is constantly evolving. New phrases emerge, old ones take on new meanings. It's a living, breathing thing.
So it's not about memorizing a fixed set of rules, but rather about adapting and evolving your language skills as you go.
Exactly. And that's where observation and active listening come in. Pay attention to how native speakers around you use these phrases. Notice the subtle nuances in their tone, their delivery, their choice of words.
It's like becoming a language detective.
Mm-hmm.
You're gathering clues, deciphering patterns, and building your own fluency toolkit. Which brings us to the most important question. What stood out to you the most from this deep dive? Which of these phrases are you going to try using in your next conversation?
It's been a truly insightful exploration of everyday English fluency. Remember, it's not about becoming someone else. It's about finding your own voice and expressing yourself with confidence.
Creatively said, the journey to fluency is an ongoing process of discovery and growth. So embrace the challenge, have fun with it, and keep those conversations flowing.
And remember, you don't have to sound like a textbook to be fluent. Embrace the natural rhythms and nuances of everyday English. That's where the real magic happens.
Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of language. And remember, fluency is within your reach. Now go out there and start speaking.